Good morning, Aldersley High School. It's Mrs. Treble here. It's Monday the 13th of July. I hope you had a fabulous weekend. I'm going to take you through today's assembly, which is on justice. So you can see there the challenges that were set from Miss Bird on Friday. So please don't forget, if you did do any of those, to let us know, pop them on Twitter with that hashtag so that we can see what you were up to. So what does justice mean? So in really simple terms, justice means fairness. So things being fair, things being equal. Injustice is unfairness. So when you feel that something's happened that isn't fair, that maybe is biased, which means one-sided or in favour of one person or one group of people in comparison to another. What words can you connect to justice? There's a diagram there that shows lots of different words that people would associate with justice. You can see law, judge, legal. So obviously we do have a legal system within our country, and the purpose of that is to make sure that everything is just, that everything is fair, and that justice prevails. So the first example that I'm going to talk about is Rosa Parks, who I'm sure you've heard of before. She stood up for her rights and justice by not standing up. She's known as the mother of the civil rights movement, and she invigorated the struggle for racial equality when she refused to give up her seat to a white man on a bus. She was arrested for this and then launched the Montgomery bus boycott by 17,000 black citizens. So it was known as like the start of that movement. So just think, imagine you woke up tomorrow and by law had been passed which said that if you had blue eyes or brown hair or freckles, then you could not use buses and trains, were not allowed into shops and restaurants, had to walk in the gutter and not on the pavement. You were not allowed to have a mobile phone. How unjust would that be? It would just be awful, wouldn't it? It's almost, in today's time, unimaginable that would happen. We're very lucky to live in an area that is very multicultural, but imagine that it wasn't and how that would make you feel. Segregation was abolished in the USA in the 60s, but which country until recently still legally separated whites and non-whites, with non-whites having almost no rights? Some of you might know that. It's South Africa. Who is that person? A very important person. So apartheid was in place in South Africa until really quite recently. It was a policy that governed relations between South Africa's white minority and the non-white majority. It sanctioned racial segregation and political and economic discrimination against non-whites. This was law at that time, and violence was used to make sure that this injustice, this unfairness, this unfair treatment between black people and white people was carried out. It's definitely something worth going and researching a little bit further, and you wouldn't believe that it was going on, especially until as recently as it did. Imagine you've been in jail for over 25 years and then you get out and become president. What would you do? So obviously this is making reference to Nelson Mandela, the picture of the gentleman a couple of slides previous, which I'm sure lots of you have heard of. Such an inspiring man, and the things that he achieved were magnificent, perfect examples of standing up for justice and standing up for what you believe. These are a couple of quotes that he said. So, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Which he actually did. So when you read that, it sounds quite out there, doesn't it? Like it wouldn't be achievable, but he did achieve that. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. What a massive thing to have done, though, to not feel that bitterness and that hatred for what had happened to him, but instead use that and use that feeling to push forward, to fight for justice. Black Lives Matter is something that's been in the public eye for a few years now, but it's recently come back up. So I think it's important to mention that when we're talking about justice. So Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer. That LinkedIn is a perfect example of justice not in action, and that's why this organisation was introduced and founded, because they felt that injustice needed an action. There's obviously been things going on across the world that have made people feel passionate enough to protest in support of Black Lives Matter, because these things unfortunately still are going on. Another example of justice, slightly different to the ones that I've already spoke about, but I actually used to work at a school in Liverpool, right in between the two football grounds, the Everton and Liverpool football grounds. So the students there were very passionate about their football and very passionate about being Scousers, being part of the Liverpool community. And there was lots going on at the time I worked in Liverpool that linked with the Justice for the 96. Now, some of you will be aware of this already, but this has been a long battle for people that were affected by an event that took place. So the Hillsborough disaster was a fatal human crush during the association football match, with 96 fatalities and 766 injuries. It remains, as 2020, the worst disaster in British sporting history. For many years, the fans were held responsible for the disaster. I mean, just imagine how unjust that would feel if you were a family member of the fans, or in fact a fan yourself that was at that event. It wasn't until 2016, that's only 4 years ago, that the inquest jury found that Hillsborough's 96 victims were unlawfully killed and that the Liverpool fans were not responsible for the disaster. Imagine waiting that long for justice. Even now, there are trials to try and get justice for the 96 to ensure that people that are responsible for the disaster are held responsible. So there's still people fighting now for the justice for the 96 fatalities that happened at Hillsborough. I thought I'd come to the end of this assembly with that iconic figure, Martin Luther King. I'm positive that everyone will have heard of Martin Luther King, and he was mentioned in the video previously with Rosa Parks, but this is quite a powerful quote, I feel. So without justice, there can be no peace. I think he means there true peace and calm and equality. And you need justice to ensure those things are achieved. So your justice challenges then for me, I want you to think about a time when you've had an argument, a disagreement or a conflict. It doesn't matter if it's a big one or a small one, but I want you to just think back about an event like that. Reflect on if actions taken afterwards to make the situation right. So were that situation made right? Was there apologies that took place? Was there conversations that took place? So reflect on if actions were taken to make that situation right. And your third one, what things can you do now and in future to help make situations around you more just? So what role can you play? If you see something happening, what can you do to make sure that justice takes place at that time? Please post them on Twitter using the tags at Aldersley High SC, and also tag me in it because I'd love to see your thoughts on that. So you can see there, that's your jump back July calendar. Today is the 13th, so the challenge for today is to challenge negative thoughts, find an alternative interpretation. So it's all about being positive and not allowing any negativity to get in there. Remember those key email addresses for keeping safe. Remember that all staff are online from 8 till 4, so please do email us if you need anything. Have a fabulous day.